It started innocently enough. For my birthday, my stepdad got me a cute wall clock. It seemed like a sweet gesture until I discovered it had a hidden camera. Now, everything feels like it's falling apart, and I have no idea where to even begin. What happened next turned my world upside down, and I can't shake the feeling like I'm stuck in a nightmare. Let me tell you exactly what went down. I'm 18, a girl, and I live with my mom and stepdad, Josh. My mom married Josh 6 months ago, after a disastrous divorce from my dad. I won't go into the details, but trust me, it was brutal. My dad had an affair, got caught in the act, and that was the end of it. He's not in contact with either of us anymore, and honestly, it's better that way. Now, Josh. He's been in my life for as long as I can remember. He was friends with my mom long before they got together. I had no idea they had feelings for each other, and I don't think anything happened before the divorce. I grew up calling him Uncle Josh. I'd hang out at his dentist practice, so when my mom started dating him, it felt a little weird, but I adjusted. He made her happy, and that mattered to me. I'm telling you all of this to make one thing clear: Josh wasn't a stranger. I knew him well. Now, let's get to the part that's been shaking me up. Yesterday was my birthday. Normally, I don't make a big deal out of it. I went to school, then hung out with friends. It was a good day, no expectations. When I got home, though, I was in for a surprise. My mom and Josh had planned a whole surprise party. I was shocked. I had no idea. My mom usually can't keep a secret, but somehow, she pulled this off. I walked in, and there they were, my mom, Josh, Aunt Kathy, and my little cousins. The moment they yelled, "Surprise!" I was genuinely happy. We sang happy birthday, there was cake, everyone was smiling, and everything felt perfect. My mom had made all my favorite foods for dinner, and it was delicious. Then came the presents, and that's where things took a dark turn. I started with the presents for my cousins and Aunt Kathy, then it was time for my mom and Josh. They handed me a pair of concert tickets for one of my favorite bands. I couldn't believe it. I'd been saving up for ages, working part-time at a diner, just to afford a ticket. This was the gift of a lifetime. It felt like the best birthday gift ever. Aunt Kathy and my cousins left soon after, and I went to my room to tell my best friend about the tickets. I was in bed, all excited, when there was a knock on my door. It was Josh, holding one last present. I was already on a high from the tickets, so I didn't think anything could top that. He came in, holding a huge box. I could barely wait. I tore into the wrapping, eager to see what was inside. At first, I was confused. It was a clock. A pink wall clock, to be exact. It had little strawberry decals on it, and pink is my favorite color, so I thought, okay, that's cute. It was a bit overwhelming after the tickets, but I still felt grateful. Josh asked if I liked it, and I told him I did. He seemed so pleased and told me that the tickets were my mom's idea, but the clock was his way of getting me something special on his own. My room was all pink, with strawberry-themed things, so it actually fit. It felt sweet, and I thanked him again for being so thoughtful. After he left, I felt tired, so I texted my friend, Amy, telling her I was going to bed. As I was about to fall asleep, I remembered something. Amy was still on call with me, and Josh came back into my mind. He had asked to see the clock, and I had promised Amy a picture of it. So, I stretched my arm out, half lazy, half curious, to snap a photo. That's when I noticed something strange. My room was pitch black, no night lights or fairy lights, just darkness. But when I pointed my phone's camera at the clock, I saw a faint blue light coming from it. The time was in a soft pink, but the blue light was unmistakable. I didn't think much of it at first, just snapped the picture, sent it to Amy, and tried to ignore the odd feeling gnawing at me. I was almost asleep when something hit me. My mind suddenly went into overdrive, recalling something I'd seen in a crime documentary or a movie, a hidden camera. I sat up straight. It couldn't be. But the blue light confirmed it. I grabbed my phone again, switched to the front camera, and pointed it at the clock. That same blue light was there. I froze. A hidden camera. In my clock. I quickly Googled how to spot hidden cameras using your phone, and everything matched. I knew, deep down, I wasn't imagining it. I felt sick. Why would Josh give me a gift like this? The thought that someone could be watching me at that very moment made my stomach churn. Panic set in. I got up, grabbed the clock, and threw it in the trash. I returned to my bed, trembling. What the hell was happening? I was confused, terrified, and in complete disbelief. I didn't know what to do next. I called Amy and told her what I'd found. She was as freaked out as I was. We stayed on the phone for ages, and she told me I should call the cops because clearly Josh was up to something sketchy. The idea of him hiding cameras around the house made me feel nauseous. My mind raced, trying to figure out what to do. Should I confront Josh? Should I tell my mom? Everything felt surreal. This couldn't be happening. Harder than the slap itself. I was offended, but more than that, I was hurt. That's when it all truly sank in. I started crying, not just because of the slap, but because everything was falling apart. I needed her, and instead, she made everything worse. She saw my tears and told me there was no point in crying. You should have thought before you threw away a thoughtful gift, she said, her voice cold. That was the last straw. I was done. I was furious. Maybe you should think twice before defending your husband, I yelled at her. She snapped back, warning me to be careful with my words. But I didn't care anymore. I was beyond it. I got out of bed, grabbed my phone and car keys. Do you even know where Josh got that clock from? I asked, my voice low, dangerous. She thought I was just criticizing the gift and started to say something again. But I was done listening. Without waiting for her to finish, I shoved past her and ran to my car. She tried to stop me in the driveway, but I was too fast. I peeled out of there, desperate to get away. I drove aimlessly, needing space to think, to breathe. Eventually, I found a diner nearby. I sat there for what felt like hours, trying to process everything. I couldn't go home. I couldn't face them. So I called Amy, and she told me to come over. That's where I've been ever since, safe, at least for the time being. Later, we decided to confront my mom. I shared screenshots of the creepy site, the one with the clock I found. I sent them to her, hoping for some kind of answer. The response came an hour later, a mix of apologies from both her and Josh. They admitted they'd acted rashly, that they should have listened to me instead of lashing out. They wanted to explain, to make things right. But honestly, I wasn't sure I could ever forgive them for this. I didn't want to talk to either of them. So I ignored their calls, their texts. They kept coming, all apologies, each one more desperate than the last. Josh said he could prove it was Peter, someone new he'd hired, fresh out of college. Peter was the one who bought the clock. He was the one who was supposed to be running errands, not Josh. Apparently, Peter was the one who had come up with this. And still, something didn't sit right with me. Peter had always seemed off. I never trusted him, never felt comfortable around him. My mom even mentioned she wanted to call the cops on him, but she wouldn't do it without my permission. She also said that she would leave Josh if that's what it took to fix things. That statement shocked me. My mom loved Josh, but now she was willing to leave him? It made me realize just how serious everything was. I called her back. She was devastated that she hadn't believed me, that she'd slapped me. She sobbed, apologized a million times, begging me to come back home. She wanted to fix things, to make it right. But I couldn't go back, not yet. I needed time. I wasn't ready to face either of them. She said she trusted Josh, but I wasn't so sure. I told her I still wasn't comfortable living under the same roof as him. But then she said something that made me pause. "You're more important to me," she said. "I'll leave him if that's what you want." I was stunned. I needed time to think, to process. It wasn't an easy decision. I also had a slew of missed calls from Josh, but I ignored them. He sent me texts, telling me he had no idea about the camera and the clock. He insisted he loved my mom and me, and would never do anything to hurt us. But I wasn't sure I could believe him. I wasn't sure I could believe anyone anymore. It's been a whirlwind of emotions, and I'm still trying to process everything. Amy has been my rock through all of this, and she's offered me a place to stay for as long as I need. It's just her and her grandma at their house, and I know her grandma well enough to be sure she won't mind me crashing here until I figure things out. My mom tried to reach out, but I couldn't bring myself to pick up. It's not hard to guess where I'd go in a situation like this. The thought of my mom showing up here, it fills me with dread. I feel guilty, so torn. Maybe I should listen to him, give him a chance to explain himself. But then, there's this gnawing fear deep down, this sense of danger that keeps me from wanting to face him. I don't want to ruin my mom's marriage over a misunderstanding, but am I doing the right thing? Amy says I should trust my instincts, that I should only do what feels right, but right now, I have no idea what's right. And then, a twist I never saw coming. I didn't expect this post to take off the way it did. You all really blew it up. So many comments and questions flooding in, I haven't even been able to read half of them. But I've got some big updates to share, and I think I should start there before I dive into all your responses. The morning after I posted, my mom and Josh showed up at Amy's place. I wasn't even surprised anymore. I had already told my mom I wasn't ready to see Josh, that it would be better if they just left. But she begged me to hear her out, and seeing her so emotional, I could tell she'd been crying. Even Josh. He didn't look good. I felt bad for them, honestly, so I decided I'd at least hear them out. I needed to clear the air. It turns out Josh wasn't lying about Peter picking out the gift. He showed me texts between him and Peter, and though Josh claimed he had asked Peter to choose something without saying exactly what, I saw a text from Peter saying he'd found the perfect gift. It was just a picture of the clock, no link to the website or anything like that, just an image of a clock. It looked like the same basic clock I'd seen when I first got it. Nothing out of the ordinary. Josh said he liked it and told Peter to order it and send the invoice to the office address. That was it, just a regular conversation. No hidden motives. I started thinking back on all my interactions with Peter. Honestly, nothing stood out too much, just that he had always been a little off. I thought it was harmless, maybe a bit weird, but I brushed it off. I told my mom and Josh about it, and they were furious. Josh kept apologizing over and over, saying he'd failed me, that he'd put me in danger, and that he could never forgive himself. But I wasn't angry at him. I knew this wasn't his fault. It wasn't Josh's fault, not at all. I agreed to go back home with them. I can't believe I almost ruined their marriage over all this. But it's even worse to think that someone, some random creep, was watching me, wondering if the camera was on when I got the clock. The thought of him already seeing me, it's beyond chilling. It's like something out of a nightmare. We've all agreed we need to go to the police. We've got enough proof to make sure Josh isn't implicated in anything, and he's ready to do whatever it takes to help me get justice. We're going to the police first thing tomorrow. The clock is still in the trash. We're not taking it out, who knows if it's still working, and we don't want to alert Peter in case he's still watching. I'm nervous about everything, but at least I have my mom and Josh here with me. I just hope they catch him and make him pay for what he's done. Some of you mentioned that maybe I shouldn't trust Josh, that there's a chance he's been in on this with Peter. I get where you're coming from, but I trust Josh. I've seen the texts, I've checked the timestamps. There's no evidence to suggest he's guilty of anything. And even if Josh had any involvement, why would he go to Peter? He's just a guy Peter's worked with for a few months. I've already told you about the texts. I saw them myself on Josh's phone. I checked the timestamps, they don't look tampered with. Josh even showed me the money transfer he made to Peter's account for the clock. He had no way of knowing where it was bought from. All of this makes me trust him. I'd rather give Josh the benefit of the doubt than Peter. Sure, maybe Josh should have been more careful, but he's not a criminal. I don't think Peter would take the fall for Josh if we go to the cops. There's enough proof to hold Peter accountable, and if Josh was involved in any way, I'm sure the investigation will bring the truth to light. Also, some of you have asked how Peter could have known I'd like a clock like that. Well, Josh literally told him to look for something pink, preferably with strawberries. I love pink. It's basically my personality at this point. My whole wardrobe is pink, I've got strawberry-themed things everywhere. It wasn't a huge guess for Peter. But honestly, let's focus on the fact that these creepy products even exist. Many of you have asked where Peter bought the clock. I'm not going to name the site. I don't want to get into trouble, but if you search for hidden camera clocks online, you'll find it. Amy and I didn't even have to look for long to find it. Big update coming next. Peter was arrested. The weight of the decision settled heavily on me. It wasn't just about protecting myself, but perhaps preventing something even darker from happening to someone else. I had spoken to Amy at length, and as I reflected on our conversation, it hit me, he could be doing this to other girls. Maybe even minors. The thought of it made me sick to my stomach, but it fueled my determination to put a stop to him. After breakfast, I gathered my thoughts. The air felt thick with the weight of what I had to do next. My heart raced, but I knew it was time. I needed to call the police. My mom and Josh stayed close, offering silent support. I could feel their presence, their quiet strength, grounding me in the moment. I dialed, feeling the gravity of the situation tighten around me. When the dispatcher answered, I began to explain, almost too quickly. The hidden camera. The suspicious clock. The confrontation with my mom. Every word that came out of my mouth felt like a knot in my chest, but the dispatcher listened carefully, taking it all in. They took me seriously, very seriously. Within moments, 2 officers were on their way. The knock on the door felt almost surreal. The officers, calm and professional, stepped inside. I remember feeling a mixture of fear and relief as I told them everything I could remember. The officer was thorough, asking me to describe the clock in detail, the items I'd thrown away, and any other oddities. I explained how Amy and I had found that website, the one selling similar spy devices, and he reassured me that they would investigate it all. Then, he asked about my interactions with Peter. My mind raced as I recounted every moment, though there wasn't much to say. I gave him all the texts between Josh and Peter, showing how Josh had asked Peter to pick out the gift. The officer nodded, making notes, before informing us that Josh would need to accompany him for questioning. Josh, without hesitation, agreed, telling us both that everything would be fine. My mom, understandably nervous, voiced her concerns, but Josh assured her there was no need to worry. He'd be back soon. After taking my statement, the officer asked if I felt safe staying at home. He also asked if I had anyone I could stay with, just in case. I told him I trusted my mom and Josh. I would be okay. He gave me a number to contact if things ever felt unsafe, before telling us they would need to search the house, Mom and Josh's house, for any other hidden cameras or suspicious items. The police combed through every corner of our home, especially around my room. They took their time, leaving no stone unturned. But, in the end, the only things they found were the clock and the stuffed animals I'd already thrown away. Josh insisted none of the other items had come from Peter or anyone else. My mom confirmed this, saying most of the things I'd thrown out had actually been bought by her. They checked everything, but found nothing else that raised suspicion. My mom seemed to breathe a sigh of relief when the police confirmed there were no other troubling items. It was over, for now. Josh returned a few hours later, looking weary but calm. I asked him what had happened, but he just shrugged. It was all standard stuff, he said. They asked if I wanted a lawyer, but I told them no. They said I might be called in again for more questions later. The cops also told us my mom would need to go to the precinct for some routine questioning the next day. And they asked me to come in as well for paperwork and formalities. Then came the news we had all been waiting for. Peter had been arrested at his home. He was under investigation for invasion of privacy and related crimes. I didn't know much more than that, but I prayed they'd get enough evidence to convict him. All I wanted was for this nightmare to be over, and for Josh to be cleared of any involvement. The day had felt like an eternity, but I just wanted peace. The months that followed were exhausting. But through it all, my mom, Josh, and Amy had been a constant source of support. They gave me space when I needed it, but never let me feel alone. We got a lawyer, and I was scheduled to meet with them soon. My heart was heavy, but I held on to the hope that this would eventually reach a conclusion. Then, 4 months later, I had news to share. Peter had been found guilty. We had pressed charges, and he didn't put up a fight. He admitted to buying the camera clock without Josh's knowledge, a sickening betrayal. There was a small relief in knowing there was no evidence he'd done this before. But what was discovered instead sent a chill down my spine. Peter had been following me on almost all my social media accounts. Under fake names. I had no idea. The police found his search history, the surveillance website, the plans he had to spy on me. The most disturbing part? He had a crush on me since the moment he first laid eyes on me. I shuddered at the thought. He was an adult when I was only 17. He was my mom's employee, and yet he had watched me from afar, silently, creepily. The police didn't find anything else he'd done, but the social media stalking was more than enough. And when Josh asked him to pick out a gift, Peter took that as his chance to execute his disgusting plan. I can't even begin to imagine what would have happened if I hadn't noticed that camera that night. Despite his lack of a criminal record, they classified this as a misdemeanor rather than a felony, even though we tried to charge him with a felony. He spent a few days in jail, but was bailed out. It wasn't fair, and it left a bitter taste in my mouth. But the silver lining was that his crime was on record forever. It couldn't be erased. As for me, I was just trying to move forward. I focused on school, getting into college. Therapy was helping me process everything, but the scars would remain. Through it all, I was thankful for the unwavering support of my mom, Amy, and Josh. I couldn't have made it through without them. And that's where I'm at now. Still healing. Still hoping for peace.